Hey everybody, Michael D'Angelo with Silence Media. Now everything I say and do is based upon my opinion and the opinions of Silence Media. Tonight, I'm going to talk about something that I've talked about once before, but let's just say, let's just put it out there. I was born in 1969 in a hospital called Lake Ellis Hospital. I was born in Lake Ellis Hospital. I didn't know my mother. I didn't know my father. I've never met them personally, ever. Even to this day. I grew up in the hospital, and when I was about, I remember being about 5 or 6. I think it was the first traumatic experience I ever had, was being taken out of my cell it was darkness, and taken down to a room and strapped into a chair. I remember exactly what happened. In fact, to this date, I remember every negative thing that's ever happened to me. I struggle to remember positive stuff. When my son was born, I struggled to remember it. Even though I have it on video, I sit there and I just can't believe that I was there. My name, I remember being called Test 7 or 7 or Test. I remember one nurse used to hate us all, and she used to call us garbage. We were treated like cannon fodder, like shit, like subjects. That sort of thing went on for years. I remember being about 10, and no, it would have been about 8. 8, yeah. It was on my birthday. I know that much because they were so excited. They put tabs on my head, a heart monitor on my heart, over here, and somewhere else. And they gave me short, sharp bursts. I remember it clearly more when I was 10 and 11, because that's when it hurt. That's when it really hurt. Things started happening to me more and more in Lake Ellis Hospital. With more extremities when I got to 10 years old. They The nurses, the male nurses were sick fuckers. The female nurses were worse because they were sick, but they were nasty at the same time. They would take the kids and be all nice about it. I remember when I used to go and have a bath when I was like 10 years old, and I'd see these little clips going all around the bath, and they'd put me in at the end of the bath, and they said, don't worry about how the water feels, you just wash yourself, don't worry about it. And they would take the soap thing and give me a wash, and then they'd sit there and they'd say, lie down and relax. And I'd lie down, and there'd be short, sharp bursts of electricity going in the water. The first time they did it, I flipped. I freaked out. I was like, what the? I remember getting used to it, enjoying it. Actually, I looked more forward to having an electric bath than I did anything else. At one stage, I loved it. I was about 11 years old, and I knew what an erection was from this bath. But from that, I stopped. They stopped giving me baths. From that one erection, things changed. They started sticking the tabs, instead of it being on my inner legs, they started sticking it on my testicles and zapping my testicles. And I never understood why. But every time they did it, and I as a child, I never knew why they would do this. The chair that they took me to, they would stick things into us. And they would all sit round, and you could see them behind this little glass area. I remember one nurse, she was being smart one day, and she goes, this is where we take people to kill them. You're honored guest, because we're not going to kill you. And this kind of fear and shit happened to all the kids that were in there. You'd hear them scream. Fuck, you'd hear them scream. I still hear them scream today. And I'm over 50 now. I remember the first time I was heavily medicated. And I could never understand why they would give me these jabs of a lot of medication, because they never worked on me. They would jab me full of Largactil, chlorpromazine, and I had so much energy, so much rage, that I could honestly I wouldn't sleep. So they got to handcuffing my, or shackling. They had chains on the bed, and it would go to wrist cuffs, and they'd put me in it. One night, I remember they just medicated me and then put me in my bed and I was pretending to be asleep because I was sick and tired of being beaten before I went to bed, so I just tried to stay asleep. Even though I was wide awake, I tried to stay asleep. I saw, because my head was facing, I saw this man come in, pull his pants down, and start pulling mine down. And I quickly flinched, grabbed, and bit. I remember it as clear as day. And then 3 guys in white came in and kicked the shit out of me, dragged me down to the room, strapped me into the chair, and gave me bolts all night long. I remember seeing the daylight when they dragged me out. I couldn't walk, I couldn't do anything. And they stuck me back in my bed and gave me something that I was Lala. I honestly couldn't. The Largactil, the Valium, the haloperidol, the chlorpromazine, all of this that they were giving me wasn't working on me. I was so immune to the shit that it wasn't working on me. And I built up that drug resistance where it wasn't doing whatever they gave me that night or that morning. Gone. I remember waking up 3 days later to an open cell door. All the kids. We hadn't met each other until that day. And we were all taken down to the day room where we mixed with adults. And I learned how to smoke that day. An adult threw his cigarette into an ashtray and I picked it up and I seen them puffing on it, so I started puffing on it. And I liked it. It gave me a high. And then the girl next to me, she told me what she does with those butts. And I didn't smoke. I'm not going to go on about her because she's passed away now. She couldn't handle, well, actually I will. They called her Wishbone because she would stuff butts, ash, up her whoop whoop, and it was her way of getting back at the male nurses going in and raping her. And they did this every night. The screams that I was hearing was from hers and another boy next to me. No one ever touched me, raped me in that ward, in that villa again. But I would hear the screams of the other kids. I could never understand, and I still don't understand. We had this shit constantly, over and over and and over and over and over and over going on. And I could never understand why. They were giving us different kind of drugs, they were injecting us differently, they were testing all kinds of ways to electrocute us, and they said that, I remember when I got to about 12, they sent me to a home, and a bad boys home in Wanganui. It was out, it was a lake, just out of Wanganui. As you're coming into Wanganui, I can't remember what the lake was called, but it was some sort of old scout camp, and it was now a bad boys camp. They sent me out there in shackles on a prison bus, and they said no matter what happens, if I run away, I'd be shot. And they showed me what an automatic looked like, because he made me look down the barrel. I could never understand why. It never made sense, and even today it still doesn't make sense. Why? From there, I went to, something happened at that home, and I was having a bath one night, and the foster father came in, and he was brutal. He pulled me out of the bath by my hair, and he started just beating me. And I could handle a beating. I loved it. You know, you could beat on me and it was fine. I just went numb. But he was brutal. When he noticed I wasn't making a noise, when he noticed I wasn't crying, he took his belt off, and his belt had studs on it. And he started lashing me. Oh, I cried. I screamed. The next morning, his wife came in with a first aid kit and said, I'm sorry, but rather you than me. As she put big huge pads across my back to stop the bleeding. My sheets were covered in blood. I was 12 years old. I was too scared to do anything right or wrong. I didn't know what to do, because anything I did, I was going to get a beating. And that was truth. I got bashed with anything he could get his hands on. By this time, I was under the care of the Department of Social Welfare, still not knowing who my parents were. Still not knowing why I was there. What had I done as a child to be born in that hospital? I don't know. I didn't know what my parents were doing in that hospital. I didn't know anything. All I knew is that the people I was sent to liked to beat me or rape me. I grew up with that all the way until I was 17. But when I was 16, turning 17, I was involved in something Wanganui. Where I did something really, really bad. And I went to the police station and I told them what I'd done. And they didn't believe me until I explained how I did it. The thing is, the club that I went to and stuff were getting blamed, and the police were doing raids and they were doing hits on everybody to try and find out who did the bombing. So instead of blaming the club or letting my club take the blame, that club was there for me whenever I got beaten. That club was there for me, and they took me under their wing. They protected me, so I wanted to protect them. And I went to the police and I told them who did the bombing. They sent me to Kawatiri Boys Home in Levin. There I wasn't raped, but I was beaten. And beatings I didn't care about. These beatings were just a good bashing. That was fine. Get up at 0500 hours, grab your toothbrush, go have breakfast, shit, shower and shave, and then grab your toothbrush and some Ajax and clean the heads, clean the toilets. You scrub them with your toothbrush. That was more or less my day's start. Then I'd get a beating and I'd go to work. I'd come home from work, I'd get a beating, I'd cook my own dinner, wash dishes for everybody else, got another beating and went to sleep. That was my day for a good part of 8 months, 9 months. I'd been there once before for different reasons, so I knew how it went. Back then, you were still under social welfare care until you were 21. At 18, I was out of there. I went into a place called a cadet academy. It was like a junior prison for the worst of the worst. While I was there, a faggot tried to rape me while I was asleep, and I fucked him up so bad it wasn't funny. I fucking... They decided to send me out to Waikeria prison. No trial, no date, nothing. They wanted to make me learn. I don't know what. I worked in the camps for another 8 months, and I loved it. I wasn't in the junior wing, I was in an old man's wing, and I fucking loved it. I got to work hard. I got to fight. I got to scrap hard. But I didn't get beaten. I learned what the government had made me to be. A weapon. I had no emotions for what I did. And I hurt people bad. Now I've jumped in times and in years because I don't want to go on about certain things. But my time through social welfare, the Department of Social Welfare, my time in Lake Alice Hospital, my childhood was all Lake Alice Hospital and social welfare care. And I didn't really know what a childhood was. I never got to play with anything. I never got to enjoy life. All I got to do was learn how to clench my ass and pray. Everybody talks about the children. From the freedom movement to the everyday Joe blogs, they're all talking about how they want to protect the children. I think they're full of shit. Society has become where they don't give a fuck about the children. They really don't care. Back then to now, kids are still being raped, beaten and abused through social welfare care. Junior prisons. The New Zealand government of today has no fucking idea of what goes on. They don't care about the children. Back then, it was National and Labour that looked after Lake Alice Hospital. National and Labour. National and Labour. Labour and National. Until 1992 when they closed it down. And then the official shutdown in 1994. People today still don't care about the children. Over 1 million kids within New Zealand were vaccinated with a vaccine that doesn't work. Under the care of the children. Luxon himself said in an interview that he wanted to see all 5 to 11-year-olds vaccinated. That was his first interview ever as leader of the opposition. On national TV, he said he wanted to vaccinate 5 to 11-year-olds as child abuse. Who the fuck gave him right to be God? No one. But you, the people, voted in national. Did you know the abortion bill was signed in by the whole National Party except for Luxon because he wasn't there at the time? The whole National Party signed it. The abortion bill. The whole Labour Party signed it. The Greens, every one of them signed it. The abortion bill, the late-term abortion bill. And at the time, the late-term abortion bill stated aborting a baby up to 9 months was legal. The only one out of New Zealand First who didn't vote was Winston Peters. And he was in there at the time. But everybody else in New Zealand First voted. The Greens voted. They voted to kill babies. Abort babies. Now understand, we're not talking about the 13 weeks that was already in play. But that was under criminal law and health and safety law. But no, what they did was they wanted to use abortion as a contraceptive for anybody, or any woman to use anytime she wished, giving and cutting out the man in the whole ordeal. Now, in times of rape and medical, I understand, and I'm not going to go there. But if the people cared about the children, why wouldn't they include the dad? It doesn't just take a woman to make a baby. It takes a man as well. Unless it's artificially inseminated. But even then, the sperm has to come from a living man. Do the people really care about the children? No, they don't. They don't. The New Zealand people don't give a flying fuck about anything but themselves. And that's why they fail. That's why they've always failed. They don't stand together as one people. And they don't give a flying fuck about the children. And they never will. We've proven that. With Lake Alice Hospital. No arrests from the tortures, from the rapes, from the beatings, from the brutality that went on at Lake Alice Hospital has ever occurred in New Zealand. No arrests whatsoever. no arrests by anyone. The New Zealand government doesn't give a flying fuck about the children at all. It is what it is. I'm Michael D'Angelo of Silence Media. Everything I say and do was my account and my opinions of my life. And the fact being that there is no fucks given